Hey guys, Dave with Moneyology here. Hope everyone is having a great day. Today is January 26, 2020, and this is the Moneyology Premium Uranium Watch List. We're going to make this available to the public because a lot of you guys have been big fans of ours, and I know there's a lot of things going on in the uranium space, and I wanted to just get everyone in the loop of what we've been covering in our premium videos. So this one's available to you guys as well. So first and foremost, let's go through the uranium sector from various different perspectives. I started by the URA. Again, not a pure play in uranium, but the best we've got, I think, at least one that has a long-term track record. So here we are. We're in this coiled pattern here and very close to upside or downside resolution. I did point out that we've got momentum on the PPO moving in the positive direction. And so hopefully that'll continue. So far, last couple of days have not been good for the URA, so we are close to flat, and then now we're 2.5% down. So again, not big in the grand scheme of things, but when it comes to this sort of pattern, it can make or break a sector. Now here on the weekly, you kind of see what we're looking at on the monthly in more close-up. So the weekly do look like they're weakening right now. And the 13 and 26 EMAs are around 1094, 1103. So we're literally right there, hovering up and down between those two various different moving averages. We are right above that trend line and right below the 50 RSI. So again, we're at a very critical juncture, and no surprise to me why there's just been so much volatility around this point right now. So long as we're above the, I'd say 1250, I think we're okay. And if we're above 1120, I think we're in a bullish mode. If we're below that area, then I would be concerned, at least in the near term. Daily, so daily again, it's trying to it's struggling right around that 50-day moving average right now. It hasn't done much of anything. A lot of talk about capitulation and so on. I frankly don't see capitulation in the sector at this juncture, and who knows if there will be. But what I do see is just a consolidation right now, up and down, just according to the URA. So now let's do the participation corp, which tracks to the best of its ability the price of uranium. If you believe in the price of uranium, this is probably your best pure play exposure to uranium. And so here in the daily chart, we had a upswing, 50 basis points higher on Friday, and it kind of broke out of this consolidation. And you see PPO just broke above zero. Volume was pretty impressive for a Friday. So I think that it's an interesting sign. Maybe we'll get some upswing in the price of uranium and then can pick up the sector, maybe not. You see there's kind of an inverse head and shoulders potentially setting up. So I want to see this break above the 415, 420 area to get confirmation. Here it is on the weekly, and you see again, this is kind of a bullish wedge right now where you're getting higher highs, lower lows and lower highs, but it's consolidating. Every new low is consolidating, every new high is consolidating in a more tighter wedge. Meanwhile, momentum is consolidating above the trend line. So you attempted to break the 50 RSI level, couldn't do that. It's been I'd say 3 months right now consolidating from the upside. Now it's back testing the 38 level and the upper boundary of that trend line. If this can hold, if this can break above the two moving averages around 26, or rather the 13 and 26 EMAs around 411 and 417 respectively, then this could be a very bullish move, consolidative move. But we're watching this very closely right now. And here it is on the monthly perspective. Again, this is a very bullish chart, but again, it takes time to play out. And meanwhile, a lot of these companies in the space don't have the time, because every 3 months, every 6 months that the price does not move up higher, that's another 10-15% dilution. And so that's the challenge that these companies, they're running out of time, frankly. But with that said, we're so close, and we'll see which way it breaks. We'll be watching this particular chart, obviously, very closely. So going through the different names, I'm going to try to run them through them. Suffice it to say, the daily charts on most of these names are not looking strong right now, but these are weekly, so gives a little bit of broader perspective. ALX is back in this range here between 4 and 6 cents. To the downside, it's bearish. To the upside, it's bullish. I've liked the price action over the last couple of weeks. It's been strengthening, so that's a positive sign there. Anfield Energy closed the week down $15,000. Granted, very small volume, 400,000. I mean, we're talking only $40,000 traded in the stock. It's consolidating above the trend line breakout, made new lows, but with positive divergence. So we'll see how that plays out. I would like to see a recovery back above the 13 and 26 EMAs soon. Otherwise, this risks further downside. Bottom line is right now, until it breaks above the 12-cent level, there's really no technical reason to own this as a long. API Energy, we pointed out the positive divergence here that was being created on this lower low from 18 to 11 cents. Momentum didn't necessarily create. Well, there was on the short term there wasn't positive divergence, to be fair. On the daily chart, there was positive divergence forming over here, and once that trend line broke to the upside, that was a very good sign that that the stock was ready to run. And sure enough, it ran. It did from 11 to 30 cents. That was basically a three bagger for those of you who were able to buy at these lows. But bottom line is, what happens now? We close back below this upper trend line. I think a consolidation above these moving averages as they curl and provide support over time would be very, very bullish. PPO is in a positive direction. That's great. Now, mind you, this is a rare earth and uranium play. This move was probably not tied to uranium, but momentum is very strong, and I like the look of this chart. I would use any weakness to be adding to a position with the right capital. Azarga Uranium, so it broke down after a shooting star over here, creating a new high, but that couldn't hold. Now we're consolidating above the downward sloping moving averages around 19 cents. If that can hold, 18-cent level is really the number I'm looking at. If that breaks, then that's not looking good. Otherwise, that 50 RSI level either holds a support and makes a higher low, and goes like this, or it breaks below 18, and that would not look pretty at all. Azincourt Uranium had a very nasty candle on Friday, and again, it could be just an anomaly or it could be something serious. But bottom line is, it was doing really well, building strength, and then Friday's candle on fairly strong volume didn't do it any justice. And so bottom line is, now we're back testing the 38 level. If this can hold and bounce from there, then that would be a positive sign. It needs to break above this trend line to be technically relevant. Blue Sky Uranium was up 9.5% last week, and it looks to me to be on the verge of a breakout. But of course, it needs confirmation. This week did not serve as that confirmation. Broke above this wedge here, but it needs to run because right now you've got support beneath it at 10.5, 10.75, and 11.38. It's above both levels. So if it can get just some traction, close the week just above the 50 RSI level, then it can run. But if it doesn't maintain those levels and breaks lower, that can actually be a fake breakout. So I'm watching this closely. It's got the setup. It's got the right setup to make a strong move towards 17.5, possibly as high as 23, but it needs confirmation. So Cameco, that's the big gorilla in the room, and this is a very messy chart. I don't like this particular chart simply because of the noise here. There's no blue sky until you get above 13. And you see this upper trend line holding as resistance, and now we're at that 38 level. So watching this very closely, does 8 level hold? It seems like that's a magnet that eventually it's going to hit. If it breaks lower, I'm looking for positive divergence. Right now, there is some pretty nice positive divergence. In other words, momentum, even though price is pretty close to the 8 level, momentum is nowhere near the previous lows. So that could be a positive sign. If this creates a double bottom with positive divergence, or possibly even breaks lower with positive divergence, that could be a trigger point. Bottom line is, PPO is negative right now, and so I think that there is still pressure to the downside despite being down over 5% last week. Canalaska, also fake breakout. Now it seems to be breaking down, and that's not a positive sign. That's not what you want to see. In which case, if it breaks below... Sorry about the background noise. If it breaks below 20 cents, I think that 16-cent level might serve as support and kind of create an inverse head and shoulders here. But Right now, I'm not liking what I'm seeing on the weekly chart. Centrus Energy. So Centrus Energy is acting fairly good. I mean, frankly, it's consolidating right now, and if it stays above that 6 level, I'm comfortable holding long with an expected 950 target. If it breaks below that level, I'm going to start trimming my position even more. But bottom line is, it closed the week right below the 61 level, so we're watching this very closely to see which direction it heads. But PPO is below zero, so I would expect a couple more weeks of consolidation at a minimum. DPLO. So DPLO had a nice hammer pattern last week after breaking lower. It closed back above this upper trend line, which is very positive. Consolidating, kind of bullish flag consolidation. If this can resolve to the upside, would be very bullish with an initial target of 27. I like the fact that momentum is building higher highs and higher lows with a potential breakout above 50 relatively soon. So Denison Mines is one of the Canadian plays, one of the junior explorers there, and it's still hovering above 30, 38 right now. But the longer it hovers there without breaking out above that 45 level, the more likely you're going to see a capitulation breakdown, which can be pretty nasty. So I don't like this chart at all, but you see a very clearly defined buying point above 45. From a fundamental standpoint, this could be a great level, but I can't speak to that in these videos. Encore Energy has been one of the strongest players in the uranium space, and we're happy to say this. It's our largest holding. Above 50, this is very bullish. It's back tested that level and had a nice hammer pattern to close the week. So we've got the moving averages acting as support. You've kind of got like a cup and handle. I want to see this break above 17. And in my opinion, this might be one of the biggest beneficiaries of a nuclear fuel working group resolution, and it's not necessarily tied to the price of uranium in the near term. So that's important. A lot of these players, like Energy Fuels, is directly tied to the price of uranium because it's already a producer, and this is not looking good. It's breaking down right now. I will say on the daily, there's some positive divergence that I'm seeing, but it looks to me like 150 is going to be hit, and probably would be my guess is going to break below 150, shake out some longs that are got stop losses around here, and then eventually rally if it chooses to rally. We'll see. Now the one thing I am seeing is still this move is not doesn't have such negative momentum to it as the previous move here. So this to me was capitulation, and you saw a negative breakdown. Here you're not seeing it. So this could be just a slow bleed to get the longs out before an eventual positive resumption, but we'll have to see. Bottom line is PPO is below zero, and it's on very thin ice. Okay, Fission 3.0, another one of our favorites. It's the little brother or little sister of Fission Uranium, and so it's in this wedge. It kind of broke out of the first wedge. It's been consolidating in the second wedge here. But bottom line is it needs to break out above 7 cents, and it hasn't done so. Back below at 5 cents right now, back testing the 38 level. And so we're watching this closely. If this breaks above 9 cents, this can run hard. But if it stays here, then it's just going to be diluted to oblivion. So it doesn't have major expenses, but nonetheless, trading at these prices when you have to raise capital every year or so is not a place you want to be for a long term. Fission Uranium. So this one, it's very constructive price action, but again, from a technical standpoint, even though it's building positive divergence, it's finding resistance at the 38 level right now. It needs to break 32 on a price standpoint for it to run. Until it does so, it's still negative territory, and probably you have to assume it's going to resume consolidating or moving lower until when it breaks above the 32 level. Forces Metals, so had a negative week of 8% down, so they raised capital. There was really no reason at this point in time to there's no negative reason why the stock would fall outside of technical. So this breaks below 10 cents here on the Canadian exchange, then you might see some downside pressure, but for the time being, it's consolidating here until it breaks above 15 cents. This is a non-technical story. But it is above the upper trend line of this downtrend that's already been broken to the upside. So these levels hold around the 38 level. this could be a positive development. But with PPO was very close to breakout above zero, and then last couple of days, the market really took a dive to the downside. Another one of our favorite holdings is Forum Energy. So Forum Energy is not a pure uranium play, and that's kind of what you want right now, while the sector is still in the dumps. So this is a copper exploration play. Rio Tinto, really big player with this company, and this is one that can really, given the nature of its mine and the due diligence that I've done on it, could be a 10 bagger, and even in a depressed market. So let alone what might happen if the markets really turn around. But bottom line is that this looks really good, and could head to 1750. On the other hand, it's a very, very small name and can really break down to the downside if the volume disappears. But last week, 3.2 million shares. Clearly, someone's accumulating, and if they report positive results over the next couple of weeks of their drilling, that's I believe has started or is expected to start, this can really take off. And I'm looking at this from a monthly perspective here. I'll just kind of show you what I'm looking at here. You expand out, and you see that we're here in a very, very tight kind of rounded bottom here, and the neckline is, I would say, around these levels. So if you break above that neckline, I think this can move all the way to 52 cents in a flash. So it's above the 50 RSI level on the monthly perspective. And for full disclosure, we do own this name, and we really like this name. But we're very high on the technicals as well as the fundamentals, and that's why it's in our super portfolio. That's kind of what we try to accumulate, names that are have technical upside potential as well as really nice fundamental upside story as well. Global Atomic Corp. So Global Atomic Corp is consolidating here at that 50 RSI level, and also around that 40-45 zone. So I like the consolidation right now. On the one hand, it could be construed as a rounded top. That's a possibility. Also, it could be a resumption of the uptrend that it's been in. It's been one of the best performing uranium stocks. I like the momentum is headed in the right direction from a PPO standpoint, but 45 cents really has to hold to the upside. GovEx Uranium, also one of our favorites, but whereas we thought it was about to break out here, it broke above, and then this was basically a fake breakout, and now it's those who bought here with the expectation of a breakout are selling with these last 3 weeks of negative price action. So bottom line is 13 cents is an important level of support. Should hold. If it doesn't hold, then we're likely headed to 12, possibly lower. But we'll have to see what happens. I like that momentum right now is at the RSI levels that previous rally occurred right around here. So now we're back at those levels. We'll see what happens with momentum. Greenland Minerals and Energy, another rare earth and uranium play. I like the setup here, but if it breaks the 50 RSI, if next week, so down 10% this week, if it continues to break lower, then that would be concerning, and I could see a move down towards the 7 cent level, and then we'll have to revisit this. But whereas I thought it was ready to break out, clearly buyers weren't stepping up to the plate, and now sellers are taking over. ISO Energy. So ISO Energy is building momentum above the 38, right below the 50, and I like the consolidation here right now. I think eventually this resolves its way to the upside with an initial target of 65. PPO was moving in an upward direction, but if the overall market pulls back right now, that could be a negative basically momentum for the underlying stock itself. Laramide Resources is basically in territory you don't want to be in. Basically, it's just consolidating at the lows, and now it's fully diluted, if you will, at this point. So right now, this is more of a technical play. There's really no reason why this would go lower on a fundamental basis in the near term. It's got the cash it needs for the next, I'd say, 6 to 12 months, I believe. And if that 18-cent level holds, it'll be fine. But if it cannot break above the 22-cent level here, then I think eventually it does break to new lows. So whereas the positive momentum was being built here, it couldn't it didn't get a follow through. So we'll see where this one goes. Next Gen Energy. So this one's consolidating very, very tightly between 115 and about 130, and right at that downtrend line. And until it breaks to the upside, you got to assume it's going to continue consolidating, probably lower. I would say the absolute lows that I would be comfortable holding this is at 105. Breaks lower, then I think that this can go all the way towards 70. Certainly don't see that happening, but you got to be open to that possibility. Ultimately, this is one of the best core holdings, in my opinion, in a uranium portfolio. But it's well, technicals ultimately will lead the way. All right, Paladin starting to show some strength here on the PPO, but this is really a non-story till it can break the 8 to 9 cent level to the upside. Plateau Energy Minerals. So this one really broke out from a momentum perspective, and it's been creating a rounded bottom here with a neckline around 30 cent level. It's got a lot of catalysts that mainly the negatives have been priced in. If the positives come about over the next couple of weeks, this can really skyrocket. Lithium has really taken off to the upside, and this is primarily a lithium play right now with uranium as well, as an additional asset. But bottom line is this was at 170. This was at 170 just a couple of months ago and fell all the way to 17 cents, and now it can rally back again. So with momentum moving in a positive direction, if this breaks 50, this could be a double very, very quickly, if not much higher. PurePoint Uranium. So this one's consolidating right now around the 5 cent level. So long as 5 cents holds, I like the way momentum is moving. This is a very interesting exploration play, and it's got a good management team. I think eventually it breaks to the upside, but it needs a catalyst. Sky Harbor Resources. So this one as well, like Appia, I like that it broke out of its downtrend, and it's basically consolidating here above that downtrend, above the 31 level. If this can break above 18 cents, this can really rally because this has been one of the more hit names, and I don't really understand why this was hit more than any other name in the sector. But PPO is above zero, so that's a positive sign. But technically, it just needs to break above 18 cents, and until it does that, it's still in the red zone. Texas Mineral Resources. So this is bull flagging right now, but it can go either way. I wouldn't chase at this point. You either own it or you don't. Above 45 cents, I would be interested here, but until then, only if it resumes a break above this downtrend, if you will, like that, about above 90 cents would this again interest me. But the fact that it's breaking below the 61 level right now suggests that there's probably more downside ahead in the near term. UEX Corp. So this is one of the more leveraged plays to uranium. This went from, I believe it was 10 cents to about $10 back in 2003 to 2007. I'm not saying we're going to see those type of returns because the stock has been diluted substantially since then, but the actual fundamentals within the company are far better today than they were back then. So a move towards $2 to $3 would not at all surprise me, and obviously the gains would be life changing. But until it moves out of this downtrend here, those are just dream numbers basically. Bottom line is 10 cents needs to hold, or you're going to see lower prices. If this breaks above 14 cents, 15 cents really, then it gets interesting from a technical standpoint. Right now, it's just a fundamental play. I will say this downtrend from July was broken to the upside, and although 50 served as resistance, 38 may serve as support right here. And if it does, then this week should be a positive week for the stock. But if that breaks lower, then I expect to see much lower prices for UEX. So bottom line is there's a lot of uncertainty here. Your energy, this one's consolidating nicely at that 38 level, but it's one of those that if it cannot get a catalyst to break higher, it's likely going to head lower towards that 50 level, possibly even worse, all the way back to 40, 41. Uranium Energy Corp, this one's looking really, really down right now. And although there is positive divergence between the lows here, we're kind of a triple bottom. But if it cannot hold these 83 levels, I think it's headed back towards 70 here. PPO is negative, so I think this is one flush out away from a pretty big down move before an eventual rise to the upside. Virginia Energy Resources, like Encore Energy, has, I think, the most upside from a nuclear fuel working group resolution and it's set up in that way. And I think that if there's a positive release, I think this can double or triple. But at the same time, this is basically an extremely speculative play at this point. And that's no, we got one more here, and that's Western Uranium. So after a really nice move to the upside, it's been consolidating here. Now back below the now downward sloping moving averages of 93 and 95. It broke below the 50 RSI this week with a 7% down move. I think the assumption that until it breaks that $1 level to the upside around here, I think that it likely resolves its way back to the downside, back around 60 cents level if the sector continues to consolidate and move downward. So bottom line is there's more likelihood at this point, based on technicals, of further downside. Obviously, there's a pretty big catalyst from the nuclear fuel working group if and when that comes, and but the sector is not pricing that in at all at this point. And basically with the URA in very coiled pattern right now, it can go either way. And if it breaks to the upside, it would take the entire sector with it. If it breaks to the downside, well, the opposite is true. So we'll be watching closely, and we'll be looking for opportunities when they come, because I think the gains eventually will be life changing. But how many of us will have the cojones, if you will, to stick through this if especially if we've been in this for quite some time. So fortunately for us in our personal portfolio, we're not in names like Energy Fuels and Uranium Energy because it's tied to the price of uranium, and we don't like the price of uranium right now. We're in more of the exploration plays, but even those have been hit. So bottom line is, here's to some upside relatively soon, but we're all in wait and watch mode before we add to our positions over the course of the next couple weeks and months. So stay tuned, and good luck to you guys.